We are live.
Wonderful. Good evening, everybody. Here we are on Monday night book club night, and I know everybody's been really excited because we have a wonderful guest tonight in Wade Rouse. I'm Brenda Gardner from South Carolina, and with me is my lovely co-host Lisa.
Hi, everyone.
And we are once again very excited to welcome Wade Rouse, aka Viola Shipman. We're so glad to have you, Wade.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Honestly, I told you before we started, I'm very humbled. I know how critically you think and consider what books you select. So truly, it means the world.
Oh, thanks so much. I think I can safely say that our book club members have been really exciting leading up to tonight, and they are yearning to talk about The Secret of Snow. But first, I'd like to introduce Wade to our members a little bit. Wade earned his BA from Drury University and his master's in journalism from Northwestern University. He is the USA Today, Publishers Weekly, and internationally best-selling author of 13 books, including 4 memoirs and 9 novels. For his novels, he chose his grandmother's name, Viola Shipman, as a pen name to honor her, the woman whose heirlooms and family stories inspire his fiction. The book we're discussing tonight, The Secret of Snow, was an instant national and indie bestseller, a best book of fall by Country Living magazine, and a best holiday book by Good Housekeeping. He's also the author of 4 memoirs, as I said earlier, and he was named by Writer's Digest as the #2 writer, dead or alive, we'd like to have drinks with. Wade was sandwiched between Ernest Hemingway and Hunter Thompson. We will need to know more about that, but welcome, Wade.
Thank you. And cheers, everyone. I have to say, I don't know whether that's a blessing or a curse to be between Ernest Hemingway and Hunter Thompson.
I'm not sure what to do with that.
It's a lot.
Well, we are, again, really excited to talk with you about The Secret of Snow. I feel like we know you, Wade, because you gave us the video. We've seen your Wine and Words with Wade, but this is your first appearance at our book club. So tell us a little bit about, just to get us kind of started, how you created Wine and Words with Wade.
Sure. I think it's much like how Friends in Fiction got started. You know, I was like all of the ladies on Friends in Fiction. You know, I had a novel coming out in 2020 called The Heirloom Garden, and it coincided with the height of COVID. And you know, my book tour was canceled, and it seemed like every event and any potential interview I had was just washed away, and understandably. And on top of that, my father-in-law was diagnosed with COVID, and he eventually passed away of that. And to me, it kind of reset and recalibrated not only my life a little bit, but also how I wanted to approach what I did with promotion of my books and outreach to readers. So I started Wine and Words with Wade. You know, like Friends in Fiction, to have authors on and support their works in a time when there was kind of radio silence going on regarding new releases. But I also wanted to do something a little bit different and get real with readers and talk about hope and inspiration and, you know, being creative in your own life. And as we are this Thursday, talk about being brave in your own life. How is it possible to stand up for yourself and for others? So, you know, it's taken off exponentially, just like Friends in Fiction. And I'm so proud because, you know, as we were talking before we went live, we created a community and a family, and it's been the greatest thing that could have ever happened out of a very dark time. You know, beauty has arisen.
Yeah.
Well,
definitely.
It has been a remarkable thing that this whole community, many communities have sprung up around the love of writing, and it's filled the void too. And you were saying before we went on that your relationship with people and on book tour has gotten a little different, and you feel like you know people a little bit more. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, you look at the old typical book tour, and I mean, like so many authors, we showed up at events, which I loved. I mean, I miss them dearly because I love to, I love to bring, I'm one of those authors that loves to bring my books to life for people, and share a lot about myself and my background and my grandmother. And I like to hug on people, to have a drink with them. But we show up for, and they're very orchestrated events. We show up and we speak for 30 minutes and then we sign and then we leave because we have to go to the next tour spot or get some rest, whatever it may be. And this has allowed us to really engage more deeply with readers over a long period of time. And, they're not just people reading our books anymore. Their friends and family have shared as much of themselves with me that I've shared with them over the last 2 years. And I'm thankful it will never go back to the way it was. I think this is incredible what is going on. And I don't know if I'd be sitting upright if it hadn't been for all of you and for all of the readers, because we've become a support system for each other.
Yes, that's
Oh,
true. And the friendships that we've all made for our love of reading and the discussion of the books, it gave us all, interactions with others during a time where we were isolated. And it just made it so much better. And Wine and Words with Wade and Friends in Fiction both have the collective feel of community. And that has just been the blessing throughout all of this craziness that we currently have been dealing with. So thank you so much for having it on Thursday nights.
Thank you. Yeah, and foundationally, that's never going to change. We're going to, we're all going to get back to touring and going out and doing that. But this will stay a part of what we all do forever, and it's terrific.
Well, that's wonderful to hear, because I think we would really miss it if it were to go away.
Yeah.
And I know we're here tonight to talk about The Secret of Snow, and we will get to that in just a minute. But this fits so nicely with what we were saying a moment ago. I wanted to share this compliment from one of our book club members. Her name is Brenda Bingham. And she said, "The Secret of Snow was the first Viola Shipman book I'd read, and I enjoyed it so much that I followed it with The Heirloom Garden, which felt like home to me. I believe I found a favorite new author for myself, and I can't wait to read more of these heartwarming books." Thank you.
Oh,
it's lovely.
I just wanted to share that as we get into discussions about The Secret of Snow. Now, I will say to our book club members watching, we are going to follow our usual rules, which is we will be spoiler free until 7:30. Is that right, Lisa?
yeah. And if you have any questions for Wade, just leave them in the chat, but try to keep any that contain spoilers till after 7:30. And I will give the spoiler warning. So if you haven't read the book yet and you want to pop off and come back after you've finished, you can do so.
And buzz me if I say anything wrong.
Oh, wow, we haven't had to buzz anybody yet. That's empowering.
Buzz me.
That's so funny. I need a buzzer.
Yeah.
I have a magic 8-ball that I always keep on the bar by me, so it doesn't make any noise.
Funny. Well, let's we haven't even had Wade yet to share with us his summary of the book, so let's kind of dive into that. I must say this book pretty much has it all to me. It's got humor, it's got drama, it's poignant, there's a love story, but some of our members may not be familiar with it. So could you share a summary with us tonight?
Sure. Yeah, The Secret of Snow, in short, no spoilers, follows a 50-year-old meteorologist named Sunny Dunes who knows only perfect weather. She is a meteorologist in Palm Springs, California. She knows 80-degree days and sunny skies. And she goes to work one day and she finds out that she's going to be replaced and this isn't giving away too much, it happens early, by an artificial intelligent weather girl who will never age, gain weight, or renegotiate her contract. She finds this out from her very, very young boss. And she does exactly what I think most of us would do. She goes out to a Rat Pack bar in Palm Springs and gets very, very drunk. And instead of getting in a Lyft to go back to her home, she tells the driver to take her back to the station, where she has an on-air meltdown, which she learns the next day when she wakes up has gone viral. And the only place that's willing to hire her back is the tiny little station in her little northern Michigan hometown, the place that she's ran from her whole life. So she has to return. She has to work for a frenemy that she was not so nice to in college. She has to reconnect with all of her friends that she ghosted. She moves back in with her mother, who's a wisecracking hospice nurse who thinks she's Ellen, based on my own mother. And she really has to confront, and I'm not going to give too much away, but she has to confront all of the memories and loss that she had to deal with as a girl. And it's really about finding yourself again and second chances, and learning more than anything to give voice to her grief, as well as to be able to forgive herself. My mom was a hospice nurse who inspired Sonny's mother, Patty Rose, in this. And my mother used to always say, please do not end your life with regrets. The majority of people that I care for are filled with regrets. And one of the first things we have to always learn to do is to forgive ourselves. So that's the kind of the foundational basis of the book. And it does deal with some very deep topics, but I also wanted to use humor to kind of lift readers up out of that. I believe in that, what I call the H's. My mother believed in the 2 P's, prayer and penicillin. I believe in the H's. I believe that humor and heartbreak are kind of intimately connected. And from that comes a wellspring of honesty. So most people that are funny for a reason, and that's to kind of keep people at arm's distance, and to keep them from getting to know the real me, as it were. So I kind of use both of those in all my novels to kind of lift people. And you can preach without doing this.
Absolutely. I must say, I love Sonny's mom's character and the little mannerisms that she has.
I loved her
shaking
too.
Shaking her leg, shaking her arm. And it reminded me of my mother, because she would do that to me as well.
That's what my mother did. I'm one of those writers that has to bring in my deeply personal stories. I make things up and use my imagination, but I also rely on those people and places that changed me profoundly. And my mom was one of those. She was a hospice nurse for a large portion at the end of her career, and she went all over the Ozarks, where I grew up, tending to people that didn't have health care or family remaining. And I would often accompany her on those trips. And my mother would return and tell me the stories of these people's lives. I'll get emotional, as though I needed to hear them, as though I was the last connection for them. And it changed me profoundly. And the advice that my mother gave me, that she learned by caring for them, changed me profoundly. So I love that you say it reminds you of your mother too, because I wanted it to be deeply my mom, but I kind of wanted it to be everybody's. I wanted Patty Rose to be everybody's mother as well.
Well, she certainly was, and it made me smile.
Yeah.
Lisa is going to be monitoring the chat for live questions, but I'd like to kind of kick things off there here with a question for Wade. Michigan is such an important integral part of this book and all of your books. What would be the first thing that someone should know about Michigan if they were coming for the first time? And how has that inspired you have it as a backdrop?
I'll answer that twofold. It's a great question. You know, Michigan is one of, I believe, the most beautiful states in the nation, and geographically one of the most beautiful spots in the world. And people don't know that. You know, we do this in Michigan. When I moved there, you know, people, they show you their hand to tell you where they live. And I used to always think they were going to slap me. And I was like, but it's up and down the coast of Michigan, from the west to the north to the east side. You know, you're surrounded by the Great Lakes, and each resort town up and down the coast is quirky and interesting and has fascinating histories that I use in every single one of my novels. You know, it looks a lot like the Amalfi Coast of Italy. It has soaring dunes and Caribbean colored waters that people, you know, they truly believe that Lake Michigan, the first time they see it, is the ocean. Stunning dunes, beautiful sand. It's untouched and unspoiled. It's not, you know, the one big thing about Michigan, it's undeveloped. So the shoreline up and down, you can look for miles or walk for miles or boat for miles, and you don't see anything but the beauty of Mother Nature. So that's one thing I want people to know. And the other is that it is filled with good people that remind me so much of my mother and my grandmother. You know, you know, I grew up with a grandmother that just worked her tail off every day so I would have a better life. My mother was the same. They were ego-free. They didn't ask for anything except for their family to have a better life. And I found people like that in Michigan, just like I'm sure you people, both of you know too, in your states and in your towns.
Yeah.
And I wanted to write about them, and I want people to know that about Michigan as well. I before I was a writer, I read maybe all of the writers that you love just as much as I do, and many of them are friends and fiction authors. You know, Mary Alice Monroe was incredibly influential in writing about setting and environment to me as a writer and a reader. Nancy Thayer was, as well as writing about Nantucket, like Ellen Hilderbrand. Mary Kay Andrews, Dottie Frank, writing about the Low Country, Pat Conroy. I cannot tell you how much that changed me, because when I was trying to write and I was reading, these settings were like living characters. You felt the humidity. You could see the Spanish moss on the live oaks. Whatever it may be, I was transported not only geographically but emotionally, and that's what I wanted to do. And that's why I choose a different Michigan resort town for every book that I write, because I don't think people understand, and I want to bring that to life for people just as much as those authors did for me.
Well, you definitely did that for us. I want to share one comment from the chat. Jeannie says, I'm from California and know nothing about Michigan, except that it's cold and shaped like a mitten. I really enjoyed learning about it through this book. And we have another comment from Diana that says, nothing like a true Michigan summer.
That is true. I mean, if you want to talk, I say people often get through a Michigan winter because a Michigan summer is perfection. I mean, 80-degree days, no humidity, upper 50s at night. It's constantly gorgeous.
Well, you definitely make us all fall in love with it. I was hoping for snow while I was reading this book.
Oh, and there's so much interesting in your book about the winter activities. I guess we may get to that a little bit later, but it brought it really to life. Like things that I've never done but could imagine from your book. The snowshoeing and the ice caves and the ice fishing. Oh,
it's all real, all true. And I have to say, I moved to the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. Well, I've done a lot of things, but one of them is I moved to Michigan full time in February.
Oh
During
my.
the midst of one of their worst winters on history. And when I mean it snowed every day, it snowed every day. And I moved from St. Louis, Missouri, where winters were pretty mild. You know, as we were saying, 2 inches shut the city down. There was widespread panic and, you know, people rushing the stores to buy things for French toast. It was over. And I truly had to kind of recalibrate my approach to winter when I moved, because it was an onslaught of snow, and it never stopped for until probably the 1st of May. And I learned to finally appreciate the stillness of winter and the beauty of the snow. It made me, for the first time in my life, you know, I had quit my job and I was writing full time, and thought it was the dumbest mistake in my life, when I was just starting out, and I was scared. And for the first time, I felt like a kid again. You know, I saw snow as something I didn't have to drive in, and I didn't have to be angry at, and I didn't have to, you know, I did all of those things that I write about in the book. I snowshoed and I skied, and I went ice fishing, which is, you know, of all the activities I write about, that would fall lower on my list, because it's really just drinking in a tent and trying to stay warm.
Which you captured quite beautifully.
I know.
The
drinking for the ice fishing was great.
But I learned to love winter anew, and that was life changing for me.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I'm kind of curious, and a couple of our book club members asked a similar question about this. Meteorology and the weather is really important in this book. You know, there's some funny aspects of it when Sunny gets replaced, you know, by the AI woman. But how did you come to choose that as your focus, and are you fascinated by the weather?
It's a great question. I am. You know, I think growing up in the Ozarks, tornado sirens were going off constantly. You know, my mother was always like, get in a culvert, or we'd run for a cave. And I did. There was a man I knew growing up that was a meteorologist, and I would see him on TV, and then you would meet him in person off of TV. It was kind of like Santa Claus. You'd be like, is this really the same man? And I thought it was fascinating, because he would talk about weather scientifically when you would meet him, but on TV, he was much more of a personality in how he presented it. So I was always fascinated with that. And I grew up and I ended up having a lot of friends that were dear friends that are meteorologists, one in St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
One in Michigan, named Terry DeBoer, who I actually had on Wine and Words with Wade. And she used to work with Ginger Z, who kind of inspired Sunny Dunes a little bit. And I always had written, I'm one of those people that takes notes. Like, you know, people in my town think I'm a serial killer because I'm putting post-its up on my window, always taking notes, writing on my hand. I've always been fascinated with having a meteorologist as a main character, just as someone who could approach weather from a scientific and emotional standpoint, as we all do. I mean, we all have such an emotional, visceral reaction to weather. You know, it's cold, or it's gonna snow, or why is it raining today? You know, my best friend's getting married, whatever it may be. So I was fascinated in kind of having her approach that. And then also as a female TV personality, you know, kind of the unfair standards that women are held to
Yes.
in the media versus men. And, you know, I talked to Terry, and I talked to a lot of women, you know, contractually for many years, they had to maintain a certain weight, or they had to keep their hair blonde, or they had to wear certain colors that looked best on TV. While the men could throw on a toupee, gain 100 pounds, and, you know, slap on a polyester tie, it's not fair, and it's still not fair. So that was something I kind of wanted to explore as well in this book.
And you did a great job of showcasing that, and then also showing how in this day and age with social media, how things are, you can't believe everything that you see, celebrities or people on TV or people also. And with, her meltdown, so to speak, those videos that were edited to look a certain way, a lot of people don't realize how true that is, how far people will go to make someone else bad just to get a buck or to get whatever outcome they desire. So that part of it was so true. And I thought you did such a great job of
Thank you.
showcasing that and having people think about that,
I appreciate that. You're the first that has brought that up, and it was a big. I had that noted very early on because we are all chained to social media, and we are reliant on it in many, many ways for what you do and what I do. It will never change. But people also don't realize that how much is massaged and managed for good and for bad.
Yeah.
Terry told me these horrible stories on social media when she was pregnant and what people would say to her and the stories that were out about her. And, we all confront that, and it's very hurtful. And I'm a big believer in the goodness in people and the kindness in people. And I want people, when they're on social media, to be critical of thought and how they approach it and what they say.
Be kind.
Be kind. It's not hard.
Not hard.
I know. And the
Just be
benefit of the
kind.
doubt would be good too.
Mhm.
But you truly, that comes through, and I don't want to say too much. Well, we're almost at 7:30, but I don't want to say too much, but there's numerous instances in the book where, clearly there's manipulation going on, and you really get a glimpse into that whole ugly side, even though it's, well, I'll say in a few minutes when we get to our spoilers.
We're almost there.
Yeah.
I do have a question, and it's not a spoiler, but this will be our last spoiler-free question. In the book, when Sunny comes home, she sleeps in her old bedroom, and she's got the walls decorated with her childhood posters of Duran Duran, Madonna, and Rick Springfield. So my question is, and Brenda, I want to ask you too, I think it'd be fun for us all to answer this. What posters did you have in your bedroom growing up? And to our readers listening or watching, please put yours in the chat too. It'd be cool to see who everybody looked up to when they were younger.
I had those. I mean, I'm an 80s girl through and through. So I was full on with the bulletin boards, and you put the concert pins on it, and posters lined my bedroom. And I had all of those. I loved Wham. Cyndi Lauper was a big one. Madonna. Those were all kind of seminal for me. So it's a great question.
What about you, Brenda?
Drat, I was hoping she had forgotten me.
Or I can go next if you want to think.
No, you go ahead, but I'll answer. But
okay, for me, when I was younger, like fourth grade, I had Madonna on my wall and Prince. Prince is the only one that lasted through all the, because I always had posters. In high school, for me, it was Luke Perry and Prince and Tupac and Crisscross, which says a lot about me.
Want to jump.
The range of people. So yeah, and I had I think I had Madonna and Michael Jackson too in high school. I had them.
You truly covered the gamut poster.
Yeah, I did. That's why I said I had like so many different things that I loved, and that was me. I was in love with Luke Perry and Tupac.
That's so funny. I'm going to be shockingly uninteresting.
I doubt that.
Well, I mean, I liked my 80s stuff. I was a young adult by then. So I did the whole, Madonna, Cyndi Lauper, Wham thing. But when I was really young, I was into the Monkees. Like first and second grade. And then and then Saturday Night Fever was a big thing.
That's good.
So I grew up skating, roller skating. So there was a lot of disco. And I'll just leave it at that.
My heart is full.
Oh, there's so many answers in the chat. We've got David Bowie, the Beatles, Frankie Avalon, Gordon Lightfoot, Duran Duran, David Cassidy,
David Cassidy,
Rob Lowe, Madonna, Matt Dillon, the Beatles, New Kids on the Block. Yes, I was in KOTB too. Louis Armstrong.
Wow.
Donny Osmond, Prince. Yay.
Nobody said Bruce Springsteen.
I'm looking up. Oh no, Rick Springfield.
Oh.
Sean Cassidy.
I did have Sean Cassidy and Leif Garrett.
Bon Jovi, Bobby Sherman, Elton John, Billy Joel.
Oh, Billy Joel. Yeah, these are great.
Elvis, Boy George. Oh, I love Boy George.
Oh, yeah.
Def Leppard, Ralph Macchio. Yeah, I love Ralph Macchio. These are great. There's a ton. We'll go back and look at those.
Yeah, I definitely
want to in the chat. So
go back and take a look at those. Lisa, do we have anything in the chat for now, or should I go ahead with a question?
Now you go ahead with the question because it's flooded with so many people.
So many musical. Well, we'll wait for a minute on the live questions. This is actually a question of mine, and I'm going to be a little bit vague, even though we're spoiler free. But Sonny. First of all, the names in this book are awesome.
Love it.
Sonny Dunes and Chance LaChance and I don't know, they're just perfect. But anyway, obviously Sonny is on a journey in this book to find herself and to let go of her guilt. But so many of the other characters are on their own journeys, like Icicle and Lisa. So I was wondering if you could share with us, was there a character that was more difficult to resolve or to come to terms with about their feelings?
It's a great question. Yeah, you actually mentioned the two. I think in this novel, I tried to do something I had not done before, and that was really bring multi-layered characters that also had their own storyline throughout the novel as well. I wanted to show their growth and their pain as well. And I have to say the first draft and sending it to my editor, who's phenomenal, she actually helped me immensely in kind of getting to the deeper tissue on all of those characters. So for one is Icicle, the character in the book that is the kind of the Guy Friday at the TV station. And it was inspired by a real life incident. I hired a young woman when in my former life, I was a PR director. And I hired a young woman against many people's preference at the time, who was a newly minted college graduate. She was very shy. And she was an incredibly gifted writer from her samples. And I also saw her in a way that I think Sonny saw Icicle. I saw her differently than others had seen her. I saw her for herself and for her talent and what she could bring. And so that kind of inspired Icicle's journey. And this woman actually ended up taking my job when I left and has gone on to be an incredibly successful PR director at major institutions in St. Louis. And I loved I've always been someone that's prided myself on being a mentor, be it to aspiring writers or to kids that I meet that are struggling. It could be with identity issues, whatever it may be. And I am a firm believer in, this is a long answer to your question, but I'm a firm believer in the ripple effect in life, that our love and our kindness has immeasurable impact on those around us. We may never, ever know it until we are removed, or until we're gone, or somebody mentions it to us. But the impact we can have on those that we meet, just even briefly, is extraordinary. And I wanted to bring that to life in the way that she treated these characters and how she was treated. Her boss, she has a frenemy boss, and I wanted to write about that as well, because it's also inspired by a boss that I had, that I was very one-sided in how I saw her and how she treated me. I never actually stopped to take time to think about her and her life and what she was going through and how that might impact her dealing with employees. So I really tried to do, you talk about 180s and, and reviews and all of that. I tried to do that as well with these characters, but, I can never state it enough in literature or life. What we mean to those around us and the impact that we have on others, it's mind-blowing. And I have been a benefit of someone that has been shown extreme cruelty and extreme kindness. And I choose to take the road of what the good people, the foundation they laid in me. So that's in these journeys of these characters, I love doing that. And it's something I feel I actually feel this is the best book I've written, because I was able to go deeper with a lot of these secondary characters.
You can really see that. And I really felt that Lisa and Sonny, finally that each other impacted their lives hugely from way long ago. And it just illustrates how back to your point about, not living with regrets and not living with misunderstandings. It really was a powerful part of the story. Okay, Lisa's going to share some things in a minute from the chat, but I'm going to go on a lighter side. We got a little, I got so wrapped up in the characters, I got a little deep there. Maria Lou has asked a question in advance about Mayor Doris on page 200. Electing an animal for mayor. She says, is this true or did you make this up?
All true. So in Michigan, Traverse City, there's a little town that we have dear friends that live up there, and we go boating, and you can boat across a wide part of Lake Michigan, feeds into a bay, and then you can boat across to Omena Bay. And it's this quirky little art town, and it's true. So for mayor, you know how politically scarred and divided we can all be. So they decided to go above and beyond that. They actually decided to elect a mayor that was an animal, someone's pet in town. And it's interesting because the pet, they've had chickens and dogs and cats and sheep and horses and birds that have won, but the animals all run on a platform, and the platform is generally one of how the community can be better. And typically all of these animals that run have been rescued from the local shelter. So all of the donations, you have to vote. When you vote, you have to donate, and the dollars that you give go back to the shelter. But it's fascinating because the platforms that these animals run on are usually deep and kind of seated in how to make the community a better place. And truly what we should all be doing when we talk about politics. So it's all true. And I have to say, that's why I love writing about Michigan, because it's all these towns are wacky as heck.
Oh my goodness, that sounds like my state. Now you have a dog named Doris. Is that
I have
correct?
a dog named Doris, and a woman named Doris, I think on your thing said, she goes, I don't know whether to be happy or offended. And I go, you should be happy because I mean, Viola, our dogs are Doris and Mabel. I just love those old fashioned names. It's,
Yeah.
I think they're beautiful, and I'm glad to see they're coming back into vogue again. You know, I have friends that are having kids and they're naming them Rose and Hope, and they're, you know, those are beautiful names.
Oh, I thought that was funny too about Doris asking about your dog, Doris.
Like, it's all good, Doris, I promise.
Well, we had an interesting question too from Rhonda Perrette in the events questions, and I just think this is an interesting question. What character would you write a prequel or sequel for, and why?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question.
Our members work hard with these questions.
I've not been asked that before. It makes me go back in time. You know, there are characters from my debut novel, The Charm Bracelet, that I know a lot of friends and fiction readers are kind of reading anew this time because it's my debut novel.
Yeah.
And there's, you know, it's the story of 3 generations of women. And, you know, the grandmother gets early onset dementia, and she wants to tell her family the stories of her life and where they came from through the charms on her bracelet. You know, my grandmothers had charm bracelets. The charms meant the world to them. They used to tell me about where they came from, and, you know, they represented hopes and dreams. So those characters, I think I would actually really like to revisit. And I've talked a little bit with my team about maybe doing that, or bringing characters from that novel with characters from another, and bringing them together into a new story somehow. So we'll see, but that's a great question.
We like scoops on our book club discussion.
You heard it here first.
Heard it here first. Oh, that's
I have
so
a
funny.
comment I'd like to share from the chat. Nancy says her cat's name is Opal Doris.
It's pretty.
I know, Opal Doris.
Opal Doris.
And,
that is really interesting.
There's a lot of love for the relationship between Sunny and Icicle on the chat, and lots of love for the charm bracelet. A lot of our members read the charm bracelet, like you said, for the first time because it was your debut, and also some Clover's Girls,
Yeah.
Clover Girls fans.
Oh, love the.
I loved that book.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It's, you know, I you know, you talk about scoop. I have to say, one of the best holiday books I've ever read is Mary Kay Andrews' The Santa Suit. And I have to say, I'm working on my new holiday novel that'll be out next fall. And the way she approached that novel resonated with me very, very deeply. A very simple, what could have been is a very simple story that had universal connection to so many of us. So it kind of calibrated what I wanted to write about for the next kind of the Secret of Snow sequel, because I'm doing a one holiday winter book a year now for the next couple of years.
Oh, yay.
So I'm really excited about that. But she really set in motion a lot of my creative gears and how I'm approaching this. So.
Oh, that's great to hear. And also, speaking of Mary Kay Andrews, we have a special shout out from Patty Callahan Henry. She said hello, and she's happy to see you on. I do have a question from Linda. She would love to know, what's your favorite snow activity, and if you've ever participated in the polar plunge?
Polar plunge, I have not, because I'm a wussy. I have to say, Lake Michigan is difficult enough before the light sport to get into, because I don't do well with the 60s off my boat. I like it to get at least into the 70s. But I do, I have to say, I love snowshoeing. I think it is beautiful and peaceful and incredible exercise. I've not been to the Yeti Fest, which I write about in Suttons Bay, which is another real thing. I have been to the ice sculpture festivals that they have, which are stunningly beautiful. I mean, works of art out of ice. They really will take your breath away. And I do like to ski. I'm not particularly good, but I do like to ski because it gets you out and enjoying the beauty of the snow. And it's a little bit of a thrill ride as well. Ice fishing still, that's going to fall way down.
Still kind of low on the list.
It's going low on the list, but there's always booze, so I'm up for anything with that.
It would be below the list for me, but so hats off to you.
Yeah.
We also had someone ask about the Frozen Waterfall.
Those are all real.
They're all real.
They're all real, and I have to say, as I wrote about in this book, the polar vortex that I know many of you, even in the South, experienced a number of years ago, was it was insane in Michigan, and the cold was dangerous, as I wrote about in the book, but it was also brought about once in a lifetime beautiful scenes that I don't think I may never see again in my life. And one of them were the frozen waterfalls and the ice castles that developed in northern Michigan, which truly, the water comes off the lake and it starts to freeze as it hits, and it just goes higher and higher and higher. And it creates these, they're heavenly in appearance, but doorways and truly like ice castles that you can stand in and walk underneath, many of which, if it's safe to do, you can see the lake below you under all of the ice. And it is and will always be one of the most spectacular scenes of my life. It is extraordinary. And I don't know if it'll happen again.
Wow. That's amazing. That's so interesting. I can't even imagine.
I think it's time for the Secret of Snow Michigan tour.
We've actually thought about this. Ellen Hilderbrand and Dottie Frank used to do a weekend.
Yes.
We've thought about this, doing like a reader fan fest in Michigan and starting in Saugatuck, which everybody would love, but doing like a 2-day thing or 3-day thing where people come and we'll set up accommodations and make dinner for them. They can go out on our boat, do our pool, do a lot of fun things. So we're cogitating.
Well, you have the first 2 people there. Me and Brenda will be there with our earmuffs, and Lord, we've got to buy stuff if it's cold.
We'll do it for you in the summer.
Oh, yay.
We'll make it easier.
No ice fishing.
No, I want to get you out on the boat. I want you to go to the beach. We want to do those things, I think.
That would be so much fun. And I know, oh goodness. Oh my gosh, our chat is exploding after you said that Readers Weekend.
Honestly, we're gonna make this, we're gonna make it happen. Once all of this settles down, it's gonna be a fun thing.
I think
lots of love.
Consumer research.
Everybody wants to come. Everyone wants to go. Yeah, we're like, yes, I'm in. There's at least 20 people. It's going by so fast now. I can't keep up. Lots of interest there. So
good.
You heard it here first, folks.
Well, that's right. If Christy can have a Beaufort tour, Beaufort, North Carolina tour.
There would be nothing more incredible than to bring, especially my little resort town, which is filled with beautiful galleries and shops and restaurants, and It is Currier and Ives, on crack. You'll love it.
Oh, I'm in. The only time I have visited Michigan was in the late 80s to Detroit for an ice skating event, and I have never been so cold in my entire life. There was ice on the inside of my hotel room on the 26th floor.
Welcome to Michigan in the winter.
I just was not prepared. So Lisa and I will have to go shopping if we come in the winter.
I'll make it easy. We're going to do it July, August.
We'll come for sure.
That is so funny. I can't believe how much time has flown by. It is.
Oh my gosh, no way.
Almost 8 o'clock, and we had so many more questions.
We have so many more. Okay, let's see if we can blow through a couple. You got them, Brenda?
Let's do.
You go first.
Oh, me first. Okay.
Yeah. The chat is completely into planning a trip to Michigan now. We've lost control of the chat.
Well, I think this is a quick question, but maybe not. Donna wants to know, there are so many super emotional parts in the book. What do you do after writing one of those scenes?
Oh my God.
Get away.
Yeah, I will say this. As we've talked about, a large reason I wrote this novel was, after the loss of my brother, was to try and so many of us have lost so many over the last few years. I just wanted to try and give people not only hope and inspiration, but also a way to voice their grief, especially during the holidays when it's hard to do that, or during the winter months when, it seems like there's dark day after dark day. It's a prime reason I wrote it. And they're very emotional scenes brought up a lot of my own life and loss. And it was very hard. I'm a weeper. I am a person that will cry at a dog food commercial. And once I lose control, it's like game on. I just can't really bring myself back. But I also know as a writer, if I make myself laugh or if I make myself do that, then I'm on to something very good and very deep and very real, which is what I want. And to come back from that, I usually, that's why I use humor a lot, but I'm also a big runner. I usually, after I'm done writing for my 4 or 5 hours in the morning, I always go for a run, or out here in Palm Springs, I go for a hike. Anything that recenters me allows me to, I always say the more physically exhausted I get, the more emotionally and creatively alive I become. So I'm able to kind of recalibrate what I've written that day, come back fresh, make notes, and then move on with my day. And it also brings me back to center. It kind of, as I run, I deal with all of those emotions. And this is cathartic to write these novels. It's very, it's difficult, but it's also very healing.
Well, it is apparent from this book that it was deeply personal to you. You could feel it in Johnsey, that you had that connection. It was just amazing. Well, I hate to say that it is time for our announcements. We're going to give Wade a few minutes at the end, though, to share what he's currently working on and what he's currently reading.
Girl, time goes fast with you two.
I know.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
I know. I just can't believe it. But we'll take just a few minutes for announcements and then give Wade an opportunity to share some of his projects with us and some of his current reading. So first, we want to ask everybody to tune in this Wednesday night on the main Facebook page or the YouTube channel when Friends and Fiction authors welcome #1 New York Times bestselling author Amor Towles. Our next book discussion will be an unusual day for us. It's a Thursday. February 17th, but we're going to welcome Jasmine Guillory and talk about the wedding date.
Yay.
Before that, we have a great happy hour with Ron Block planned for Friday, December 4th, and we have a special guest. Nancy Johnson will be joining us in honor of the paperback copy of The Kindest Lie. Lisa,
And that's actually February 4th, not December 4th.
What did I say? Oh my
You
goodness.
said December. That's okay. It feels like December. It's cold. And I still have my Christmas tree up. So
what she said.
Friday, February 4th will be our happy hour with Nancy Johnson and our beloved Ron Block. And also, I'd like to add, we are doing Secret Valentines. It was such a hit last year. Mm-hmm. If you're interested in doing a Secret Valentine, it's kind of like Secret Santa, where you pick a name and send a gift. We have the sign-up sheet on our page. Joe Denna, our wonderful moderator, posted it. So you have until January 30th to sign up, and we will draw names on January 31st. So if you're interested, please sign up for that. I think that's it for my announcements, Brenda.
Okay, now on to the good stuff. Wade, tell us about what you're currently working on and what we might see in the next year or so.
I'm working on a lot.
That's good news.
Yeah, currently writing, as I mentioned, my next winter holiday novel, which will be out this coming fall and early winter. But I have 2 books coming out this spring and summer. I have my first, many of you know, I write Viola Shipman novels, but I started my career as a memoirist. And I have my first memoir in a decade coming out on May 3rd from HarperCollins. And it's called Magic Season, A Sun Story. And it's about the beautiful but also very difficult relationship I had with my Ozarks father. And the only thing that bonded us was our love of baseball and the St. Louis Cardinals. And it takes place through the very, inning by inning, through the very last baseball game we ever watched together. And it's heartbreaking and beautiful. And, you know, I think for any parent or child who's had a relationship where all you've ever wanted was unconditional love and acceptance, this is a book that will resonate deeply with you. I'm excited. I just got a cover blurb from Jenny Lawson, who's the New York Times bestselling memoirist, and she read the book in a day and has given me some incredible praise. So I'm really excited about that memoir. And then in July 12th, I have my next Viola summer novel coming out. It's called The Edge of Summer.
Wow.
And it is inspired by my grandmother's buttons and button jars, and as well as the pearl button industry in America at the turn of the century, which was one of our largest employers. And it's a story about a woman who loses her mother and goes in search of who she was and who she is. And it's really a novel about, you know, why we too often place value on those people and things that we think have more worth, but they truly don't. Why we seek things beyond what we have when we're enough. So it's a beautiful story. Set in my hometown of Saugatuck, Douglas, Michigan. I'm really, really excited about it. So that's what's coming up. It's still a lot. And I'll be on tour. I said I'm going on a huge tour in the South, through Michigan and also through the South. I'm going to be hitting the Carolinas and Georgia, hopefully Florida. So I'll be on the road for many days, and I hope to see many of you while I'm out and about.
Yay, that's the best news. I'm so excited to hear that. And our chat is exploding again. What can you share what you're currently reading, and also possibly a nonfiction recommendation? Our reading challenge for February is a nonfiction or memoir, which I think you have a few of your own that I think I will be choosing.
I think a few of our members might be making some selections there.
I have a few of my own, and I love, by the way, I love what you do with these categories for your book club members. It's, there's nothing more important than expanding what genres and what authors you read, and really pushing yourself. And memoir does that. And I have 4 out, very different from my Viola books. So stay, folks, if you like David Sedaris or Augustin Burroughs, hold on to your hats, because it's very different from Viola. But I would say, right now I'm reading a brand new, it's not out, it's out February 1st, which I think is going to fit perfectly with your category. But it's called Don't Cry for Me. And it is a deeply, I don't want to give too much away. It's about a Black father who's trying to make amends with his gay son by writing him letters on his deathbed. And Jesmyn Ward gave it the cover blurb. I read it because it parallels much of my own journey with my father, and my book that's coming out. So I think people would love that. And I also have to say, please, I always do this. If you want an older memoir nonfiction book to read, I reread almost every single year Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott.
Oh, that's a good one.
Which is not only a book about writing, it's a book about life and faith and finding yourself. So there's some suggestions.
Those are fabulous.
Well, I can't believe it's time already, but we want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. It has been a pleasure chatting with you about this incredible novel that we all love so much. And I do want to also add, I also listened to the audio book version of it, and that was amazing. And thank you for including the little, well, I shouldn't say the little, but thank you for including the novella at the end as well. Christmas in Tinsel Village.
Yeah,
is that right?
We're doing, thank you. We're actually doing that from now on out. We're doing a novella at the end of each. So it becomes like a twofer. I know everybody likes, it's like a +1. So yeah, the next one, in my next winter novel, I just finished a beautiful little short story about heirloom nutcrackers, which I also collect. So that's going to be a bonus story at the end. So yeah, I'm really excited about that.
We definitely love that. Thank you so much again. I want to close by reading from your acknowledgments. You shared a quote from your grandma Shipman, and I absolutely love it. I think it's the perfect way to close out the night. And it says, as my grandma Shipman always said, life is as short as one blink of God's eye, but we too often forget in that blink what matters most, each other. Beautiful. We love you. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, we do. Thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure.
It's an honor to be with you. It means the world. And I adore you. I adore all of your many readers and fans. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Wade. Good night.
Good night. Thanks for joining us.